Hi, in this demo I'm going to show you how to get started with your palette knife painting. I have everything I need. I've got my little easel set up here. Doesn't have to be an easel. Anything you can get to hold your painting up will be fine. I've got a panel that I'm going to work on. You can work on, of course, canvas board, stretch canvas. In this case, this is actually a veneer plywood. It's an 1/8 inch thin plywood that I've primed with gesso. Gesso is pretty much an artist's grade primer, white primer. I've given it 1 or 2 coats here for this demo. And I have a palette. I'm using a paper palette. It's a pad you can buy. And it's disposable palette. It's kind of like 50 sheets here of wax, type of a waxy kind of paper that I can dispose of. And you can mix on here. I have my paints, the colors that come in the kit, the limited palette that we're using of colors, the 2 yellows, 2 reds, and 2 blues, and the white. I've put them out on the palette. You can arrange your colors pretty much any way you want, though doing it the same time each time will help you in quickly finding your colors. I arranged them around the edge here, trying to give myself some room to mix. So I have a palette knife here. There's a number of different kinds of palette knives. I think one of my favorite actually is this teardrop shaped palette knife. Notice a palette knife has a little bit of is shaped like this, and it's not just a palette knife, it's also a painting knife. So with this little jog in it here, it makes it easier to use it as a painting knife as well as a palette knife for mixing the paint. And 6 colors here is not a ton. It's certainly not the full rainbow of colors. The primary colors here, of course, yellow, red, and blue. I'd like to maybe, you could just start painting with that, or I may think, well, I'd like the full rainbow here. And to achieve that, I would mix the primary colors, the colors you always need to start, to get my secondary colors. So like the 3 primary colors, I want the 3 secondary colors. Yellow and blue would make green. I'm going to, now you can try this any way you want. I happen to know that the lemon yellow and you may know this already as well, and the phthalo blue, which is this very strong color, so I'm going to use just a tiny bit of it. I always start with the weaker color there and mix into it with the stronger color. So now I got a real nice green, as you can see. I'm going to put that pile of green over here, and my range of colors is growing. Wipe off. I also have a rag handy, paper towel or a rag. You'll always need that handy in one hand. And I'm going to mix, say, an orange. To mix the orange, I'm going to use the yellow that leans towards orange already, rather than this yellow that has no warmth in it at all. And I'm going to mix a little bit of red in there. And I chose the red that is also leaning towards orange. It has warmth in it, as opposed to this other red. Other red might have made an interesting orange, but I'm going for as bright secondaries as I can get. Clear, bright secondaries that if you held them up to a color wheel in a book, they'd stand up pretty well. To make my violet would be the last secondary color in the rainbow. And I'm going to use my other blue, this ultramarine blue, and this other red. These are only 2 colors I haven't used yet. And I'll take the red, put it here, and add some of the blue. And I have a purple. You probably have no way of seeing that though, because these are pretty, like I said, very dense, power-packed colors. so they look pretty dark, which is good if you need a dark purple. But if you need a purple you can actually see, I'm going to add a little bit of white to it, and you guys can see it's a pretty nice bright violet. If you had bought a violet in the store, you know, it would just be one kind of violet. Here you can add a little, you know, you can make it a more blue violet. You can make it as dark or as light as you want. You could make it a more red violet. So I've got all this violet here now, and I'm also learning how to mix violet. So this is the advantage of having a limited palette and learning to mix. You'll really get good at mixing, and you'll realize you don't need all those store-bought colors. So I'm set here with my range of colors, and I'm pretty much ready to get started painting. I'm going to use the paint straight out of the tube as far as consistency goes, and I'm not going to thin it at all with water if it's acrylic paints, or with solvent if it's oil paints. And so I'm not going to thin this paint down. I'm going to you know, apply it directly to the canvas just the way it is, and I'm going to drag color and find a way to spread it on here. You probably saw in the examples of past student work, some people dab it, some people kind of scrape it on. The goal here is to get over the fear of using paint. That's why I squeezed out a fair bit. I wasn't stingy about it, and I'm going to probably need to squeeze out more as I go along, and I'm going to be fairly bold at putting it on. I can always scrape some back off if I want, put it back on my palette, and so that's how we get started. And in the next video I'll show you how I sketch my fruit onto the canvas and get started painting.